started with our webinar. So this webinar is on the Management Plus Collections module. And if you have any questions when we're finished or need help maybe setting it up or answering some additional questions for the Collections module, please either email support@managementplus.com or call support at 800-695-6994 and press option 1, and anyone who answers the phone should be able to help you and answer any questions that you have. So the Collections module is designed to be an area for you to be able to collect on outstanding patient balances. So this has to do specifically with patient balances, not with insurance balances, and it allows you to kind of maybe get a handle on or control your AR a little bit more, and to be able to work it for specific accounts, for account balances over a certain amount, for patients. You can have different people in your office working A through M versus N through Z, those kinds of things. So it is a great way to kind of help you clean up your patient AR. So we're going to go ahead and look at, in the Collections module, some of the setup information, because the first thing you're going to need to do is set it up. So if you go to File, Collections, and then Collections Setup, we're going to go to the General Setup area. So this is the General Setup page. I'm just going to go ahead and expand that. Still doesn't make it too big. But here is your criteria. So this basically, the selection criteria says, I'm going to grab these people who meet this criteria, these patients who meet this criteria, and put them on my collections work list. So you have some parameters here that you can set up. Now, right now, this is set up, the over 30, over 60, over 90, over 120 is currently set up by date of service. We've sent in a request to our development team to see if we can't allow you to choose, and maybe do that by when the account was transferred to the patient. But right now, just so you know, it is set up by date of service. So these are OR statements. So this is saying if they're over 30 or over 60 or over 90 or over 120. So because I have zeros in here, it's not going to pull anybody in that's in my 0 to 60 range. It's only going to pull in people who are over 90 or over 120. So if they have a balance that's greater than $5 in their over 90-day bucket, or in their $5 in their over 120-day bucket, either one of those, it's going to pull them onto the Collections module. And if they have not made a patient payment in the last 30 days. So this has nothing to do with insurance payments. It's if they haven't made a patient payment in the last 30 days. And you can set that criteria, again, to be whatever you want. So if you wanted it to be in each of these buckets, and you wanted to maybe be only balances greater than 10, you can set that up, and this just says these are the people that are going to show up when I run my Collections module, when I pull up the Collections work list. And you can choose not to use the 30-day window. So if you don't care if they've made a payment in the last 30 days, you just care if their account balance is past due, you can use that criteria as well. Alerts, this says I want it to create an alert for the patient's account if they're in in-house collections or outside collections. So this allows you to do your in-house collections work list, and then it will also allow you to send them to an outside collection agency, and it will create 2 separate lists for you. So this just says I want those alerts to pop up when I open the patient's account or go to schedule an appointment. You can also set it up, which I'll show you in a minute, so that it won't let someone schedule an appointment if they're in in-house or outside collections. Then here we've got the adjustments. This says if I'm going to write them off, so if I'm going to move them from my in-house collections work list, I'm going to send them to an outside collection agency. When you send them to outside collections within the Management Plus system, it writes off or adjusts off. It doesn't actually write it off. It adjusts off their balance, so it's no longer on your balance sheet. And then this just says what adjustment do you want to use when we write that off to outside adjustments. And then if the collection agency collects money for you, how would you like to apply that money back to the patient's account? What adjustment do you want to use in that case? And then here, when you send them to an outside collections, it will create an Excel spreadsheet for you. So you can actually have it generate an Excel spreadsheet that you can then send to your collection agency. And that Excel spreadsheet has everything that the collection agency would need to collect. It's got their name, their address, their social security number, their employer, their phone numbers, what their balances are, all that information is going to be on that Excel spreadsheet. So you choose what path you want that to be sent to. So I've got mine on my desktop, and I'll show you that outside collection Excel spreadsheet in a bit. And then this says, as soon as I send them to the outside collection agency, I want to immediately have that go to my Excel spreadsheet. Otherwise, at the end of the day, I can send everybody if I want to. So this says do it immediately. If this is unchecked, then at the end of the day, I'm going to have to do something to move them to that. So I'm going to have to go out to my outside collections work list, right-click, and tell it to go to that export. All right, so this is the first thing, or one of the first things that you're going to want to set up in your system is that collections, general setup information. Then going back to that collections setup information, we're going to go set up some actions. So what kind of actions might we want to take when we're sending people to collections? So if you click Add here, yours, when you get it in your system, if you have not used it, this is going to be totally blank, okay? So if you click the Add button, you can put a description in here. So, something like call their home, call their work, call their cell, whatever it is you want to do. And then you put the action type down here, which when you're in the collections work list, is going to pop up different pieces of information. So for instance, if I'm going to call their home, I would choose phone call, and then when I go to do that action, it's going to give me a list of their phone numbers. Same thing if I say it's an email action, then it's going to give me a list of their emails. If I do letter, it's going to let me go out and choose a form letter. So depending on what description you put in here, you're going to want to choose what action type it is. So for instance, on this one that's call home, I say it's a phone call, and you'll see when we go and if we do that call home action, it's going to give me their phone numbers. Okay? So you want to set up what actions are possible that you might want to take. So we've got these actions available to us. Call their home, call their work, collection letter 1, collection letter 2, email notifications. These are just going to be listed in alphabetical order as you put them in here. But then you can set up in just a minute, I'll show you how to set up the criteria to say we want to do this first and then this and then this. So this is a list of actions we could possibly take. And then if we go back to our setup area, we're going to set up our plan. So action is what actions can we take. Plan says we want to do things in this order. So this is the order that I've set up for our system to say this is what we want to do first. First we want to call their house, and then after 5 days we want to send them the email notification 1. So this after days is after 5 days I want it to do the next action. After 8 days I want it to do the next action. So you're going to do the same thing here. You're going to click Add, and you're going to add your action plan. So it's going to say what sequence you want to do this in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could have it much more simple. You could have 3 steps. It's all up to you. And this is then after this many days I want to move to the next action. And this is the action that I'm going to choose. So if you click, it's going to give you that list of actions that we were looking at before that you can choose from now to create your action plan. So basically what we're saying here is the first step I want to take, or I want to have people in my office take, is I want them to call the patient at home. And then after 5 days I want them to send them an email notification letting them know that we've tried to contact them, that they're still behind on their account and they need to make a payment. Then we're going to call their work, send another email, send collection letter 2, and then send the final collection letter. So it just depends on how you want to set these steps up. And again, we've got this sequence of events, and you'll see when we get in the collections work list, it's going to suggest what the next step is. However, even though this is what our action plan is, I could jump from call home all the way to final collection letter if that's what I choose to do. So I can still pick and choose. It just kind of says this is what your next action should be. I can still choose to take a different action. Okay, so that's the action plan. So that's how you're going to set that information up. And then the next step would be to go ahead and open up your in-house work list. Now, when you open up your in-house work list, it is going to take a few minutes for that to populate, because it is going through every single patient's account to see if they meet the criteria. In our case, the criteria was if they had over 90 days, it's more than $5, over 120 days, it's more than $5, and if they haven't made a payment in the last 30 days. So if I work my collections this morning, close out my collections work list, I come back in and work my work list this afternoon, it's again going to have to search. So it's going to take a few minutes for it to pull up because it's again searching that criteria. Because what I don't want is I don't want someone who maybe has a balance, but they came in this morning and made a payment. I don't want to call them this afternoon and yell at them. Okay? So once you get out here, this is your collections work list, and there's a lot of information that's out here and available to you. You can see there's all kinds of columns. So here's, actions that have been taken, you've got your last action date, what the last action was, the next action. Now, our first action that we were going to take was call home, and you can see I haven't done anything here, so it immediately loads that first action for me for every single patient that I've done nothing for. It says your next action is you should call their house. And there's not a next action date because I haven't taken any actions yet. But you can see down here, once I've taken an action, it will give me what that next action should be. So I called their work, and it says the next action that you should take is on 7/23. So I called their work on 7/13. So it says the next action should be on 7/23. You should send email notification to. So once I've worked this one time, I would say I would sort this by next action date, because you can sort by anything you want. And that way I could just work whatever next action I should be taking. I can just go down my list and work my collections list. So first you're going to have to set, actually do an action, and then it's going to tell you when should I do the next action. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in just a minute. So you've got all these columns available to you over here. And again, they go clear across the top. You've got tons of information that's available to you, addresses, when was their last insurance payment, their last patient payment, all this information. Now, if you don't want to see all of these columns, you want this to be much more condensed, this little button right here says click here to show or hide. If you click that, you can actually uncheck things here that you don't want to see. So maybe I don't want to see their patient ID or their account number. I do want their full name. I might want their preferred name. I don't care about salutation or suffix or their guarantor or their social security number. I might care about their gender, might care about their date of birth. I don't really need to display this information unless I want to, because if my action is to call home when I go to do that, it is going to give me their phone number. So I can choose to make my columns smaller by not showing all that information. Might not care if they're married. I might care who their employer is. I might care the billing entity, but now it's going to show me the patient balance, the coverage balance, their total balance, what's their last insurance date, their last insurance payment, what's the date of the payment, what's the amount of the payment, what's the patient last payment, that kind of information. And then you can see it just narrows my criteria across the top. I can also do other things like drag and drop columns somewhere. So maybe I do want their full name here, but maybe I want the patient balance to be over there. So here's my patient balance right here. I'm just going to left click and drag it over here next to their name, because that's where I want it to be. So now you can see I've got their full name and their patient balance. You can drag these columns around as well. And the other thing that you can do is you can actually, any one of these columns you can actually sort by. So if I wanted to sort by name, I could. Or if I wanted to sort by patient balance, I could. You can also narrow the criteria. So maybe I only work the A through M's and somebody else works N through Z. So I'm just going to say that it's greater than, their full name is greater, and I'm going to put M and then a percent sign, which means M and anything that's after that. And then I click the OK button. And in this case, it's going to say I'm going to work M and greater. So if I really wanted to work the A through M's, then I'm going to say is less than M and a percent, okay, or N and a percent sign. And then it's going to go ahead when I click OK, and then you can see now I just have the A through M's here. I don't have anybody that's N through Z because I narrowed my search criteria. And down here it's telling me what it is. My full name is less than N with a percent. Then if I want to work the greatest patient balances first, I can choose to also resort this column and show my higher balances at the top and my lower balances at the bottom of my work list. Okay, so then I can work the highest balances first. So let's go on and work our next person. It says my step should be that I'm going to call their home because I haven't done anything with Joseph's account. If you right-click, it gives you a list of what your options are. So these are the actions that I've put in there that I can take. My next action that I should take is call their home. But again, I could choose any one of these that I want. I don't have to necessarily choose call their home. But I'm going to go ahead and choose call home. And it's going to give me all their phone numbers. Now, this person only has a home phone. If they had a work phone, cell phone, it's really going to list all of their phone numbers. Then you can also say what the patient's response was. So this is a drop-down list. So I've created some things in here for my drop-down list. You can see not all of them are related to the phone call, but all of them are related to what they might have done as I emailed them, those kinds of things. And this is a reportable field because we've got this drop-down list. It's a reportable field. So let's say I actually spoke with the patient. I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. And then you can also add, any additional notes. Patient was very abrupt in their response. And then hung up. So I can also add additional notes in there if I want to. Say OK, and then it's going to update and say that I called their home today, and then it says my next action should be to send an email notification, and I should do that on 7/25. Now, when you right-click, you can also open the patient's account. So if I wanted to look at the patient's account while I'm calling them, and you can see it's created that alert that says the patient's in in-house collections. So I have access to their entire patient account while I'm in here. You can also just go to their financial information while you're in here, or you can also go to make a payment. So if I was in there and the patient, I was talking to them and said, well, let me go ahead and just make a payment. As long as you can take payments over the phone, you could grab that payment. And let's say they made a payment by credit card. I could say, it's American Express, and then I've got this new little charge button. This is something that we've got offered through TransFirst, so that you can actually take credit card information right in Management Plus and do the authorization and all that. So over the phone, if I entered all this information, it would actually process that transaction, and it would give me a verification of that payment. So if you want information on that, just contact tech support, either email or call tech support, and they can tell you about this option. Otherwise, if you don't have this option, it'd be just the normal, take the credit card payment, just like you take any other payment in Management Plus. I'm going to go ahead and change this back to, check, just because I don't want that to be in there. Then you can put in their check number and the check amount, maybe paid $150, and I'm going to go ahead and make a payment on this patient's account. And it's going to go ahead and make that a payment. So the payment's been successfully posted. So once your patients are on this work list, let's say you set up a work plan for them, you can do that. If you're setting up a work plan and you want them then to come off your collections work list, then you're going to mark them inactive. So if you mark them inactive, then they're going to come off this collections work list. Okay, so if you made some kind of payment plan with them, and as long as they agreed that they're going to make a payment every 30 days, if you mark that inactive, then they're not going to show up unless they haven't made that payment in the last 30 days. Then they're going to pop back on this collections module again. Okay, so you can see the options here: open patient, go to their financials, make a payment. This is where you would write them off to outside collections, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute if you're going to write them off to outside collections. Again, mark inactive, and you can also choose to show zero balance patients if you want to. This will refresh the work list, but you should know if you do that, it's going to refresh it as if you opened that up originally, so it's going to take a while to do that. So I'm not going to click that refresh one. Okay, so we've called their home, and it's added an action here. So we've got their first action down here. We've got this person. We've sent their final collection letter, and they haven't responded. So I'm going to go ahead and send her, Stephanie, to outside collections. So I'm going to mark right off to outside collections. Then here it says, please select a collection agency and add all the charges you want to write off. So even though I'm sending her to outside collections, I could still choose what I want to write off to the outside collections and what I don't. So I'm going to choose a collection agency. And then here I can either click on the line and hold the control key and click different lines. Or if I want everything, I can click on the first one, scroll down to the last one, hold the shift key, click the shift key, and it will grab everything. If I don't want to write off these interest payments, then I'm just going to go ahead and I could do the same thing here. I can see all these bottom ones are just interest payments, and I'm not going to send those to my collection agency. So again, I can either choose these individually with the control key, or I can go down to this last one and hit the shift key. And basically the shift says do anything between this and where I hit the shift. So it's going to write off these 4 line items. And I'm going to say OK, and it's going to send those out to my collections agency, to my Excel spreadsheet. And remember, I told it to send that information immediately, so it's going to go ahead and send that immediately. And I'm just going to open up my outside collections agency work list, see if I can find it really quick for you, and open that up so you can see what that looks like. So here is the information that was out on my spreadsheet. So this created this spreadsheet for me. that said I want to send the information off here. Now some of those things get scrunched, so you can just unscrunch them by double clicking. It's just an Excel spreadsheet, so the normal stuff that you do in Excel works in this. Okay, so then it says this is the information that's going to be sent to the collection agency. So we've got their full name, last name, first name, their gender, social security number, date of birth, their home phone, their work phone. It's got their employer. It's got the CPT codes, the charges, payments, adjustments. And again, if you want to, make any of these columns wider, you can just do that. All right, so this is the Excel spreadsheet that I could then send to my outside collection agency and have them collect on this debt. And then in Stephanie's account, it's going to go out and show that we wrote this off to outside collection. So if we go out and look at Stephanie's account, you can go to Stephanie Jones. It's an out, now it's changed, she's an outside collection, so we get that alert that says she's an outside collection. And then if we go out and look at her financials, what's left in there is my interest payments, but the other information has been written off to outside collections. So we made this adjustment. Remember we said collection agency write-off? So it created that adjustment and zeroed out her account for me. Okay? So that's what happens when you write them to outside collections. It's going to zero off that balance for you. And then you're going to, if you actually collect from the collection agency, then you can go back in and add an adjustment showing that you've collected from that agency. Okay, let's go back to our collections work list quickly. Okay, so again, you can work this work list, and like I said, once I had worked this work list and gone all the way through it one time, I would just always sort by my next action date so that then I could grab that information and see what I had done. Let's look at another one here. And if you double click on any light item, it's going to show you exactly what actions have been taken. So you can see 3 actions have been taken here. If I double click, it actually shows me what actions have been taken. So this one says, we've sent the collection letters. So the first thing we did was we called their work. We called their work again. Then we sent this final collection letter. The attachment is not here because somebody's not actually attached it. So let's go to one of these where I should be sending a collection letter. So it says my next action should be, this is my last action, was to send a collection letter. So if I'm going to send collection letter 1, again, I can put my response in here that says I sent collection letter 1 mailed. I'm going to click new letter. It's going to open up my letters, my form letters. And if I click a letter, it's going to actually go get that letter for me so I can send that letter out to the patient. So it's going to grab those form letters. So you want to make sure that your form letters were in there. And I'm not sure if this is a good form letter, but hopefully it is. Doesn't usually take quite this long for my letter to generate, but could be I chose a bad letter. Sorry, I'm not sure why this has gotten stuck. Like I said, it must be that I chose a bad letter, so let me see if I can get it to stop. Or for whatever reason, my Microsoft Word just doesn't want to open. Which is actually what's happening. My Word, for some reason, isn't working. I can't even open any Word document on my system. Let me see if I can get this, my Microsoft Word merge to stop. Okay. It did actually generate a letter, finally, so it would have generated this letter and pulled it in, except for I closed out of my Management Plus. So it's going to generate that letter for us. And then the letter is going to show up in our Collections module. So you can actually see the letter in the Collections module. It will not be in the patient's account, but you would be able to view that in the Collections module. So that would be viewable in the Collections module. So now I'm going to show you where you're going to set it up if you want those alerts to pop up. So if you go to File, and then to Administration and to System Properties, on the Scheduling tab, it's going to give you the option to don't allow appointments if patient is in in-house collections, and then don't allow appointments if the patient is in outside collections. So you can choose one or the other or both. Okay, so that's going to give you that option. So if these are checked, when I go to make an appointment for that patient, it is not going to let me do that. All right, so I will show you that as well. So if you have those checked, it's not going to allow someone to make that appointment for that patient. So if I go out to make an appointment, remember we sent Stephanie to our collections. So if I go into to Stephanie Jones, actually let me open up my template scheduling. And first of all, remember that alert's going to pop up. So if I go to make an appointment for Stephanie, I'm going to get that alert. So I should probably pay attention to this alert right here first that says she's in outside collections, which probably means that I shouldn't be doing that. But in case people are going to do it anyway, if I just ignore this and then I go to make this appointment and I say okay, it's telling me the patient is active in outside collections and may not be scheduled. So if I ignore that pop-up, this is a safety net that you can say, nope, you can't make that appointment. And then if someone really needs to make that appointment for some reason, you know, the person who has administrative rights, you could go out and you could change that, you know, under the administrative privileges, under system properties, on that scheduling module, you know, uncheck that box. Go ahead and make that appointment for Stephanie. And it would let you do it, and then you want to remember to go back and change it back if you don't want anybody else to have access to that, okay? Because it will let me do it now because I changed it. So even though she's an outside collection, you know, maybe she's made some kind of arrangement, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, I didn't refresh it, sorry. I had to refresh it before I could do that. So that is the basics of the Collections module and how it works. And we're at our 11:30 mark. We promised a 30-minute webinar. So if you have questions, need help, you know, want assistance in setting that up, have any other questions about it, if you will please just call support at 800-695-6994, option 1, or email support@managementplus.com, and anybody who answers can help you, you know, walk through setting up that Collections module. And I apologize, at least one person is saying that they couldn't understand what I was saying. So hopefully that got better as we went on. But again, if you have any questions, please email support or call support. And thank you very much for attending the webinar.